Every story you hear is recorded by me in my own voice for hours at a time. No AI narration, just dedication and a love for great stories. If you appreciate that, hit subscribe. The old forests of northeastern America hold a different kind of darkness. Not the darkness of caves, not the darkness of storms, but the darkness created by endless trees standing so close together that moonlight struggles to reach the ground. Even today, there are places in the forests once traveled by the Iroquois where a person can walk for hours without seeing another human being. The trees seem endless, the silence feels alive, and after sunset, every sound appears larger than it should. A snapping branch, a distant rustle, the cry of an animal somewhere beyond sight. For generations, people learned to respect these forests because they believed something else lived there, something that did not walk, something that did not hunt like ordinary predators, something that came from above. Among all the frightening stories preserved by the Iroquois, few inspired more fear than the flying heads. The stories described enormous weird heads moving through the wilderness without bodies. Their faces were said to be grotesque and distorted, with eyes burning like fire in the darkness. Their hair hung in tangled masses behind them, their mouths stretched impossibly wide, filled with sharp teeth capable of tearing through flesh and bone. Some accounts claimed their ears were shaped like wings. Others insisted they floated through the air by supernatural means. The details varied. The terror did not, because every version agreed on one fact. When a flying head appeared, death usually followed. Many legends connecting them to ancient violence, wars, massacres, bloodshed so terrible that it left scars upon the land itself. According to some traditions, the creatures emerged from the lingering hunger of conflict. Others believed they had always existed, hiding within the deepest forests long before the first villages were built. Whatever their origin, people feared them enough to alter their behavior. Certain paths were avoided after sunset. Children were warned never to wander into the woods alone. Travelers refused to continue journeys once darkness settled over the trees. The fear was practical because encounters continued. Stories emerged from hunters, from travelers, from entire families. Again and again, the descriptions followed similar patterns. A strange sound in the distance, a feeling of being watched, movement above the trees, then the face, always the face. Huge, unnatural, hungry. One account in particular has survived through generations because of how ordinary it began. There was no battle, no curse, no warning from a village elder, only a young hunter traveling through the forests during late autumn. The year itself has long been forgotten, but the story remained. The hunter was experienced. He knew the wilderness well. He had followed game trails since childhood and understood how to survive in conditions that would terrify most people. Nothing about the journey concerned him. The weather remained clear, his supplies were sufficient, and the forest appeared calm. Yet before sunset, he noticed something unusual. The birds had stopped singing. At first, the silence seemed insignificant. Wildlife often grows quiet during certain parts of the day, but as he continued walking, the absence became impossible to ignore. No birds, no squirrels, no distant animal calls, nothing. The forest felt empty, not peaceful, abandoned, as though every living thing had left in a hurry. The hunter continued anyway. Experienced woodsmen did not frighten easily. The wilderness constantly produces strange moments, Most have simple explanations, but as evening approached, another detail emerged, a sound, very faint, far away, a rhythmic noise unlike anything he had heard before. Not footsteps, not wings, not an animal call. Something heavier, a slow, wet, crunching sound carried through the trees. Then silence, then sound again, closer this time. The hunter stopped walking, the forest stopped with him. No wind moved through the branches, no animals stirred, only darkness slowly gathering beneath the trees. Then he noticed something that made his stomach tighten. The sound was not coming from ahead, it was coming from above, and somewhere beyond the treetops, something enormous was moving through the forest canopy. The hunter remained perfectly still. Years in the wilderness had taught him an important lesson. When something feels wrong in the forest, movement is often the worst choice. So he listened. The sound came again, a slow, heavy crunching noise moving somewhere above the trees, not fluttering, not soaring, moving, as though something enormous was forcing its way through the upper canopy. The noise stopped. Silence returned. The hunter slowly lifted his eyes toward the treetops. At first, he saw nothing unusual. The last traces of daylight filtered through the branches, painting the forest in deep shades of gray and black. The leaves moved gently in the evening air. Everything appeared normal. Then he noticed one branch moving differently. It bent downward, not from wind, from weight. A large branch, nearly 50 feet above the ground, sagged suddenly before snapping with a sharp crack. The sound echoed through the forest. Then another branch broke farther away, then another. Each snap came closer than the last. The hunter's grip tightened around his spear. Whatever was moving above him was large, far larger than any bear, far larger than any animal he had ever encountered. The snapping continued, a trail of destruction moving through the treetops, closer, closer, closer. Then it stopped completely. The silence that followed felt unnatural. The hunter could hear his own breathing. He could hear his heartbeat, but nothing else. No movement, no wind, no wildlife, only stillness, a terrible stillness. Minutes passed, the forest remained frozen, and then, from somewhere high above, came a sound that chilled him more than anything he had heard before. Breathing, deep, slow, hungry. The noise drifted downward toward the trees. It was not breathing of an animal resting after exertion. It sounded like something savoring a scent, searching. The hunter suddenly realized what was happening. Whatever was above him knew he was there. Instinct took over. He began moving, not running, not yet. Fast, controlled steps through the darkening forest. The sound above resumed almost immediately. Branches cracked, leaves scattered, wood splintered. The thing was moving again, matching his direction, following. The hunter increased his pace. The creature above increased its pace as well. Now the forest echoed with destruction. Large limbs snapped apart. Entire sections of the canopy shook violently. Yet despite the tremendous noise, the hunter still could not see what pursued him. Only evidence of its passage, only its presence. The fading daylight disappeared completely. Night settled across the wilderness. Shadows swallowed the forest floor. The hunter knew he needed shelter before darkness became total. Fortunately, he remembered an old rock formation nearby, a narrow outcrop used by travelers during storms. If he could reach it, he might gain enough protection to survive until morning. He changed direction. The sounds above changed with him. There was no doubt now. The thing was tracking him deliberately. Every turn, every adjustment, every attempt to break away, it followed. The hunter's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Still he pushed forward. Branches slapped against his face. Roots threatened to trip him. The darkness thickened. Then, for the first time, he saw it. Only for a moment. A gap opened between the trees high above. Moonlight slipped through, and something passed across that pale light. The hunter froze. The shape was enormous, far larger than a human head had any right to be. A gigantic face drifting through the darkness, tangled black hair trailing behind it, eyes glowing with a faint orange light, a mouth stretched impossibly wide. Rows of sharp teeth gleamed in the moonlight. Then it vanished beyond the branches. The hunter felt cold terror spread through his body, not because he had seen a monster, but because he had recognized it. Every warning, every story, every tale told beside winter fires. The flying head. And now it knew exactly where he was. The sound above accelerated suddenly, no longer stalking, no longer observing, hunting. The hunter broke into a run. Behind him, the forest exploded with snapping branches as the flying head surged through the darkness in pursuit. The hunter ran harder than he had ever run in his life. The forest became a blur of shadows, roots, and tree trunks flashing past in the darkness. Branches whipped against his face. Loose stones rolled beneath his feet. More than once he nearly fell, but fear kept him moving. Behind him, the flying head crashed through the upper canopy like a living nightmare. The sound was everywhere. Branches snapping, wood splintering, leaves raining down through the darkness. Every few seconds he could hear the creature's deep breathing echoing between the trees. Closer, much closer. The hunter knew he could not outrun it forever. No human could. The creature moved too quickly. It did not need trails. It did not need clear ground. It traveled through the air itself. The old rock outcrop was his only chance. If he could reach it, if he could hide, if the stories were wrong. The forest floor suddenly sloped downward. The hunter stumbled down a steep hillside, sliding across loose soil and fallen leaves. He caught himself against a tree and continued running. Above him, something huge passed between the branches. For a split second, moonlight illuminated the flying head again. Its appearance was even worse than he remembered from the stories. The face looked human only in the most distant sense. Its skin appeared stretched and weathered like old leather. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural orange fire. Its tangled hair hung in thick masses around its face, twisting and flowing behind it like dark smoke. And its mouth was enormous, far too large for the face that contained it. The jaws opened wider than seemed possible, revealing rows upon rows of sharp teeth. The creature looked hungry, not merely hungry for food, hungry for people, hungry for fear, hungry for pursuit itself. The sight nearly caused the hunter to freeze, but another deafening crack echoed through the trees as the creature surged forward. The chase continued. The hunter pushed himself beyond exhaustion. His lungs burned, his legs screamed for rest. Still he ran. Then, through the darkness ahead, he saw something that gave him hope. Rock, the outcrop. A massive wall of stone rising from the forest floor. He had reached it. The formation was narrow and steep, with several deep crevices running through its face. Travelers sometimes sheltered there during storms because the stone provided protection from wind and rain. The hunter scrambled toward it. Behind him, the flying head let out a sound unlike anything he had ever heard. It was not a roar, not a scream. It sounded like laughter mixed with hunger. The noise rolled through the forest and sent terror racing through his body. The creature knew he was cornered. The hunter reached the stone wall and quickly searched for shelter. His eyes found a narrow crack between two massive rocks, barely large enough for a man to squeeze through. Without hesitation, he forced himself inside. Sharp stones scraped his arms and shoulders. The opening narrowed. Darkness swallowed him. Finally, he reached a small cavity hidden within the rock formation. It was cramped, cold, but concealed. The hunter remained absolutely still. Outside, the forest fell silent. The flying head had stopped moving. That silence frightened him more than the chase. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. The hunter struggled to control his breathing. Perhaps the creature had lost him. Perhaps the stone had hidden his scent. Perhaps a shadow moved across the entrance. The hunter's heart nearly stopped. Something enormous was outside, watching, waiting. The orange glow of two eyes slowly appeared beyond the crack in the rocks. The flying head had found him, and it wasn't leaving. The hunter did not move. He barely allowed himself to breathe. The narrow cavity inside the rock formation suddenly felt far smaller than before. Every inch of space seemed to close around him as the glowing eyes remained fixed on the entrance. Outside, the flying head hovered in complete silence. It did not attack. It did not roar. It simply watched. That somehow made it worse. Predators actually act. They chase, they strike, they kill. But this creature appeared content to wait, as if it knew time was on its side. The orange glow beyond the crack never blinked, never shifted. The hunter could feel its attention pressing against him through the darkness. Minutes passed, then more. The night deepened around the forest. Still, the flying head remained. Occasionally, the hunter heard faint sounds from outside, the slow movement of tangled hair brushing against branches, a soft grinding of teeth, the steady rhythm of its breathing. Each sound reminded him that the creature was only a few feet away, waiting. The hunter's legs cramped. His shoulders ached from being pressed against stone, yet he dared not move. He knew the stories. Many people believed the flying heads were incredibly patient. They could remain motionless for hours if necessary. Some legends claimed they could wait for entire nights beside hidden travelers. And now he understood why those stories survived. The creature was not driven by rage, it was driven by certainty. Certainty that eventually fear, exhaustion, or desperation would force its prey into the open. The hours crawled by, moonlight shifted across the forest. The temperature dropped, a cold wind began moving through the trees, and still the glowing eyes remained. At some point during the deepest part of the night, something changed. The flying head moved, only slightly. The eyes vanished from the entrance. The hunter's heart pounded. For a brief moment, he wondered if the creature had finally left. Then he heard a sound from above, a scraping noise against stone, slow, heavy, deliberate. The creature was climbing over the rock formation. The hunter looked upward. The narrow cavity contained several small cracks where moonlight filtered through. Through one of those openings, he could see movement against the night sky. a massive silhouette. The flying head was circling the formation, searching, looking for another way inside. The hunter felt panic rising. The cavity protected him from a direct attack, but if the creature found another opening, there would be nowhere left to run. The scraping continued, stone shifted, small pebbles fell from the ceiling. The enormous head moved somewhere above him. Its weight should have been impossible. Its existence should have been impossible. Yet both were happening. Then everything became quiet again. No scraping, no breathing, no movement. The silence lasted so long that the hunter began to fear something even worse. Maybe the creature had found an opening. Maybe it was already inside the formation. Maybe it was moving toward him through the darkness. The thought made him every shadow seem alive. Every crack in the stone looked deeper. Every sound from the forest carried new meaning. Then, far away, another noise echoed through the night. The cry of a wolf. The hunter almost sighed with relief. A normal sound, a natural sound, something familiar. But the relief vanished instantly because the wolf cried only once. Then there came a violent disturbance somewhere in the forest. Branches snapping, animals scattering, a brief, terrible shriek, and then silence. Complete silence. The flying head had left the rock formation. The hunter realized it immediately. The creature had found something else, something easier, something exposed. The forest became still once more, yet the hunter felt no comfort, because if the creature returned, the night was far from over. For a long time the hunter remained inside the narrow cavity, listening. The forest beyond the rocks seemed empty again. No scraping, no breathing, no glowing eyes staring through the entrance, only darkness. Yet he refused to trust it. The stories had survived for generations because the flying heads were clever. They were not mindless beasts charging blindly through the wilderness. Again and again, the legends described them as patient hunters capable of deceiving their prey. So he waited. Minutes became hours. The cold deepened. The stone around him felt like ice. His muscles stiffened from remaining motionless. Still, he stayed hidden. Then, somewhere in the distance, another sound drifted through the forest. A scream. Human. The hunter's blood ran cold. The cry lasted only a moment before ending abruptly. Silence followed, the kind of silence that feels heavier than noise. He knew there were small settlements scattered throughout the region. Families lived in the isolated clearings, often separated by miles of forest. If the flying head had reached one of them, the hunter pushed the thought away. There was nothing he could do, not alone, not against that thing. Outside, the eastern horizon slowly began to lighten. The first signs of dawn appeared beyond the trees. The hunter felt a small measure of relief. Many dangerous creatures prefer darkness. Perhaps daylight would force the flying head away. Perhaps sunrise would end the nightmare. Gradually, pale gray light filtered through the cracks in the stone. Birds had not yet returned. The forest remained unnaturally quiet, but the darkness was fading. After what felt like an eternity, the hunter finally crawled toward the entrance. Carefully, slowly, every nerve in his body expected to see those glowing eyes waiting outside. Instead, he found nothing. The forest stood empty. Morning mist drifted between the trees. The rock formation appeared undisturbed. The flying head was gone, at least for now. The hunter emerged cautiously from the cavity. His legs nearly gave out beneath him. He had not slept, had barely moved, yet relief pushed him forward. He needed to reach people. He needed to warn someone. The forest around him looked different in daylight, less threatening, more familiar, but evidence of the night's events remained everywhere. Broken branches littered the ground. Entire sections of the canopy had been torn apart. Several young trees had been snapped cleanly in half. The destruction stretched through the forest like a trail left by something enormous. The hunter followed it cautiously, not because he wanted to, because it led toward the nearest settlement. As the morning progressed, the signs became worse. More broken trees, deep gouges carved into bark, large patches of disturbed dirt. Whatever had moved through these woods during the night had done so without any concern of concealment. Then the hunter found something that stopped him in his tracks. A deer, or what remained of one. The animal lay near a fallen log. Its body had been torn apart with shocking violence. The surrounding ground was stained dark. The hunter had seen predator kills before: bears, wolves, mountain lions. This looked different. The damage was excessive, almost purposeful, as if the creature responsible enjoyed destruction as much as feeding. The hunter hurried onward. The settlement could not be far now, and with every passing minute, a terrible fear grew inside him. What if the scream he had heard during the night had come from there? What if he was already too late? By midday, smoke appeared above the trees. The settlement was close. Relief surged through him. People meant safety. People meant witnesses. People meant help. But as he emerged from the forest and finally saw the village ahead, that relief vanished instantly. Something was terribly wrong. No voices echoed through the settlement. No children played outside. No smoke rose from cooking fires. The entire village sat beneath the midday sun in complete silence, and silence, the hunter had learned, was often the first sign that the flying head had already arrived. The hunter slowed his pace as he approached the edge of the settlement. Every instinct told him to stop, but the need to know what had happened pushed him forward anyway. The village lay ahead in full daylight, surrounded by fields and thin lines of smoke that should have been rising from cooking fires. Yet there was no movement, no sound, not even the usual distant calls of livestock. It felt abandoned, but not in the normal sense, not like people had left, more like something had passed through and erased the idea of activity itself. He stepped onto the dirt path leading into the settlement. The ground was undisturbed in places, but in others there were signs of panic. Overturned baskets, broken tools, doors left open. One hut had its wooden door hanging off its hinges, swinging slightly in the breeze. The hunter moved slowly now, carefully, every step heavier than the last. He called out once. No answer. He called again. Still nothing. Only the faint creak of wood shifting in the wood. As he moved deeper into the village, the silence became unbearable. It was not just absence of people, it was absence of life in motion. No barking dogs, no distant voices, no cooking sounds, nothing. Then he saw the first body, near the center of the village, a man lying face down in the dirt. The hunter did not approach immediately. He already knew what he would find. Still, he forced himself forward. The man's body was badly damaged, not from a clean attack, from something that had torn and pulled without restraint. The hunter stepped back, swallowing hard. Another body lay near a collapsed fence, then another near a storage hut. The destruction was scattered, not organized like a raid, not strategic like a human attack. It was chaotic, violent, unfocused, as if something had moved through the settlement without concern for anything except what it could take or break. The hunter's breathing grew shallow. He looked toward the northern edge of the village. That was where the scream had come from. He walked faster now. The ground became more disturbed the further he went. Broken wood, torn fabric, deep marks in the soil that looked like something had dragged itself across the earth. Then he reached the last hut, the largest one. Its walls were partially collapsed. Smoke stains marked the outer beams as if a fire had been started and extinguished abruptly. The door stood open. The hunter hesitated. For a moment, he considered turning away, leaving, not looking inside. But he already knew that whatever he feared was not outside this hut, it was inside. He stepped forward. The interior was dark, even in daylight. The air smelled heavy, like ash and something metallic. He adjusted his vision slowly, and then he saw it. More bodies, not just one or two, several, all collapsed in different positions as if they had tried to escape or hide in the final moments. The damage was consistent with what he had seen outside, but something else was different here. There were no signs of struggle in the usual sense, no weapons scattered in defense, no organized resistance. It was as if the attack had been sudden, overwhelming, unavoidable. The hunter stood frozen in the doorway. Then something made him look upward. A shadow passed across the open roof beams, slow, deliberate, familiar. His blood turned cold. He stepped backward instinctively, and in that moment, he heard it. A sound from above the village, not loud, not frantic, controlled, a breathing pattern, deep, slow, as if something enormous was circling just beyond sight. The hunter did not wait. He turned and ran. Behind him, the shadow moved again across the rooftops, and this time, it followed. The hunter ran through the village without looking back. The silence around him was no longer empty. It felt occupied, like something had taken residence in the space between buildings, watching from angles he could not see. Behind him, the rooftops creaked, not from wind, from weight moving across them, slow, controlled, deliberate. He did not need to run around to know what was there. The flying head had not left. It had only finished what it came for, and now it was aware of him again. The hunter burst through the edge of the settlement and back into the open land. Fields stretched ahead, pale and uneven in the morning light. The forest stood farther beyond, dark and dense like a wall waiting to close around him again. He chose the open ground. If he stayed in the fields, at least he could see it coming. That thought lasted only a few seconds. Then he heard the sound above him, a slow tearing movement through the air. Not winds, not birds. Something heavy cutting across space with intent. He looked up. The sky was clear, empty. For a moment, relief tried to surface. Then the shadow crossed the sun. Massive, unnatural, a circular distortion passing overhead as if the air itself had been bent. And then the flying head appeared fully above him, no longer hidden in trees, no longer circling the canopy. It was out in the open sky now, huge beyond reason. Its hair streamed behind it like dark smoke pulled by unseen currents. Its glowing eyes locked directly onto the hunter below. Its mouth opened slightly, revealing rows of teeth that caught the light even from above. And then it descended, not falling, not dropping, charging downward through the air like a living weapon. The hunter sprinted, the ground blurred beneath him. His lungs burned again, just like the night before, but there was no forest now to break his path, only open land and distant hope. The impact behind him was instant. Earth exploded where the flying head struck. Dirt and grass scattered into the air. The force alone nearly knocked him off his feet even without direct contact. He stumbled but kept running. The creature rose again almost immediately. It was not slowed, not injured. It simply recalculated and continued. The hunter realized something terrible in that moment. The forest had not been the monster's advantage. The darkness had not been the cover. It had been restraint. Now there was no restraint, only pursuit. He changed direction sharply toward a cluster of large rocks near the field's edge. Any cover was better than none. Behind him, the air tore again. The flying head adjusted instantly, matching, predicting, closing the distance faster than before. The hunter reached the rocks and threw himself into a narrow gap between them. Stones scraped his arms as he forced his body inside. He barely had time to turn before the shadow fell over the entrance. The flying head hovered above the opening, blocking the sky. Its eyes glowed down into the stone crevice. Patient again, but different now, not waiting for fear, waiting for exhaustion. The hunter pressed himself deeper into the rock. No escape, no forest to run into this time, only stone, and something watching from above that no longer needed darkness to hunt him. The flying head let out a slow sound, not a roar, not laughter, something closer to anticipation, and the opening above him slowly darkened as it leaned closer. The hunter held his breath. The stone around him felt colder with every passing second, as if the rock itself was reacting to what hovered just outside. Above the crevice, the flying head remained motionless, watching, listening, waiting. The hunter understood something now that he had not understood in the forest. This was not a chase anymore, it was containment. He was not being pursued, he was being kept in place. The opening above him darkened further as the massive face leaned closer. The glow from its eyes poured into the narrow crack, staining the stone with faint orange light. The hunter shifted slightly, just enough to relieve the pain in his cramped legs. A mistake. The smallest movement echoed in the tight space. Above, the flying head reacted instantly. The breathing changed, slower, more focused. The opening widened visually as the creature adjusted its position. Then the first stone fell. A small fragment broke loose from the top of the crevice and dropped beside the hunter, then another. The flying head was testing the entrance, not rushing, not forcing, just applying pressure. The hunter pressed himself flat against the inner wall, trying to make himself as small as possible, but the space was already too small. Every movement betrayed him. Outside, the sound of grinding teeth returned, slow, intentional, like something preparing itself. Then the silence returned again, this time heavier than before. The hunter knew what that meant. The creature was repositioning. Above the crevice, the light shifted. The glow of the eyes moved slightly to one side, then disappeared. The hunter froze. No eyes, no breathing, no sound, only the faint wind across the field outside. For a moment, hope tried to return. Maybe it had left. Maybe it had lost interest. Maybe a shadow dropped over the entrance from a different angle. The flying head was no longer in front of the crevice. It was circling, looking for a way in. Stone scraped somewhere above him again, then another sound, closer this time. Inside the rock formation, the hunter's blood ran cold. The creature had found another gap, a second opening, hidden from view. The flying head's presence shifted above and to the side, and suddenly the hunter realized the terrifying truth. There was more than one way into the stone, and the creature had already mapped them all. A faint draft moved through the cavity, cold air from outside, followed by something else, the faintest trace of breathing inside the rock itself. The hunter turned slowly toward the deeper darkness behind him, and for the first time since entering the formation, he understood that the flying head was no longer outside the stone. It was inside its structure, moving through it, approaching him from within the cracks he could not see. The crevice was no longer a hiding place, it was a trap. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the narrow stone walls, something was smiling without a body. The hunter did not move. Even his breathing became shallow, controlled, almost non-existent. The stone around him was no longer just a shelter. It felt like a hollowed out space shared with something else, something that did not need light to find its way. The faint breathing he had heard moments before was gone now, but that did not bring relief. It brought uncertainty, because silence in this place no longer meant absence. It meant approach without sound, a slow, deliberate pressure moving through the rock itself. The hunter pressed his hand against the inner wall of the crevice, cold stone, no vibration, no movement, and yet he could feel it, not physically, something deeper, a sense that the structure around him was no longer fully stable in meaning. The rock was not just rock, it was stood them well enough, and now something did. A faint sound returned, not above, not outside, behind him, very close, a scraping noise, slow, careful, like fingernails drawn lightly across stone. The hunter turned his head just enough to see into the deeper darkness of the crevice. Nothing visible, only blackness layered over blackness. Then the sound stopped. A pause, long enough to make his thoughts spiral. Then it came again, closer. This time accompanied by a subtle shift in air pressure inside the stone. The hunter realized with growing horror that the flying head was not forcing its way in. It was navigating, using the fractures in the rock like passages, following structure rather than breaking it, understanding rather than destroying. The legend never mentioned that part, the intelligence, the patience, the adaptation. Another sound echoed, this time from above the crevice entrance again, a low, satisfied exhale. The creature was everywhere at once now, inside, outside, above. The hunter's mind raced through options that no longer existed. There was no exit, no escape route, only narrowing space and expanding awareness of something that refused to remain in a single location. Then, without warning, the air inside the crevice grew warmer, not by much, just enough to notice, just enough to signal proximity. The hunter slowly looked forward into the darkness, and for the first time he saw it clearly. Not the full head, not the entire form, just part of it. An eye, glowing faintly orange, embedded in the darkness between two fractured stones, as if the rock itself had opened to reveal it. It blinked once, slowly, deliberately, and in that blink the hunter understood something final. The flying head had never been outside the stone trying to get in. It had been inside the landscape the entire time, waiting for the right moment to become visible again. And now, The moment had arrived. The darkness around him shifted, and the crevice stopped being a hiding place forever. The hunter did not scream, not because he was brave, because there was no time left for reaction. The glow in the darkness expanded slowly, filling the narrow crevice with a dim, burning orange light. The stone around him seemed to lose its definition, as if the rock itself was no longer certain where its boundaries ended. The flying head was no longer just seen through gaps, it was present inside the structure of the stone, pressing through fractures that had always existed but were never meant to be noticed. The hunter backed away instinctively, his shoulders scraping against the tight walls. Every movement sent small vibrations through the crevice, and each vibration seemed to be answered from deeper within. A slow response, patient, close. The eye remained fixed on him, unblinking. Then, for the first time, the hunter heard something clearly inside the stone. Not scraping, not movement, a voice, not spoken in words, but formed in pressure and resonance, as if the rock itself was carrying intention. The sound was low, heavy, unnatural. It felt like recognition. The hunter pressed himself flat against the inner wall, but there was nowhere left to go. The crevice had become a sealed space of awareness, and he was the only thing inside it that still needed air. The glow intensified. More of the flying head became visible through the fractured stone, edges of its massive form, strands of dark hair drifting through impossible gaps. The suggestion of teeth behind shifting darkness. It was not forcing entry, it was completing presence. The distinction terrified him more than attack ever could. Then the stone above him cracked, not loudly, not violently, just enough to open a new seam of light. A thin line split the rock overhead, and through it, moonlight poured in. For a brief moment, the hunter saw the full scale of what surrounded him. The crevice was not a small hiding place, it was part of a much larger fractured formation. And within those fractures, the flying head moved like something woven into the landscape itself, appearing through gaps, withdrawing through others, never constrained by a single direction. It was not entering, it was revealing where it already was. The hunter dropped his spear. It hit the stone floor with a dull sound that felt impossibly loud. Above him, the eye shifted slightly, not away, downward. The stone around the hunter began to tremble, slowly at first, then more consistently, not collapsing, not breaking, adjusting, like something within the formation was reorganizing its shape to better accommodate what was inside it. The hunter finally understood the truth of the legend in its most terrifying form. The flying heads were not creatures that crossed the forest. They were disturbances that moved through it, through trees, through air, through stone, through anything that had space between parts. And wherever there was space, they could become present. The crack above widened just slightly, enough for more light, enough for more presence, enough for the hunter to realize there was no longer any separation between him and what he feared. The flying head did not need to chase him anymore, because the place he was standing in was already part of it. The hunter stopped trying to escape, not because he accepted death, but because movement no longer made sense inside a place that had stopped behaving like a place. The crevice, the stone, the cracks above, it all felt like parts of a single system that was not aware of him inside it. The glowing eye remained fixed, but it no longer felt like it was looking in the way a living creature looks. It felt like a tension distributed through structure, like the entire rock formation had learned where he was. The air inside the crevice grew heavier, not with dust or smoke, with presence. The hunter slowly lowered himself to the ground, his back against the stone wall. Every instinct told him to keep moving, but there was nowhere left that movement could take him. Above, the cracks in the stone widened further. Thin lines of moonlight split the darkness into fragments, and within those fragments, shapes began to form again, not fully visible, not fully hidden, just enough to suggest scale beyond the limits of the space. The flying head was no longer confined to a single direction. It appeared in multiple fractures at once. An eye here, a portion of hair there, a suggestion of teeth where no mouth should fit. The hunter realized something that froze him more than fear ever had. It was not circling him anymore, it was assembling around him. The stone itself began to hum faintly, a deep, low vibration that traveled through the ground and into his bones. Not sound, instruction. The hunter closed his eyes for a brief moment, but that only made it worse. Without sight, the presence became clearer. The pressure of being observed was no longer coming from one direction. It was surrounding him completely. Above, below, behind, inside the structure itself. A soft crack echoed again, then another. The formation was opening, not breaking apart, but reorganizing in slow, deliberate shifts. The flying head was not forcing entry, it was completing access. The hunter opened his eyes again just in time to see the crack of moonlight above widen into a narrow vertical slit. And in that slit, the full shape of the creature briefly aligned, not as a single head, but as something far larger than the idea of one. A vast, drifting presence made of faces, eyes, hair, and impossible geometry, moving through the forest and stone as though both were the same medium. The hunter finally understood why the stories never described escape, because escape implied distance, and there was no distance inside something that could exist through structure itself. The glow intensified one final time. The stone around him stopped feeling like shelter, stopped feeling like prison, stopped feeling like anything separate at all. It felt like part of a body that had finally become aware of where all its pieces were. And the hunter, alone in the deepest crack of the formation, realized the final truth of the flying heads. They were not coming closer, they were simply becoming complete, and he was already inside the shape the flying head was forming. The hunter did not remember the exact moment he stopped being afraid. It was not a decision, it was not courage, it was exhaustion meeting something far larger than fear could remain attached to. Inside the stone, the light shifted one final time. The thin fractures of moonlight widened slightly, then stabilized, as if the entire formation had reached a point where it no longer needed to change quickly. Everything inside the rock felt arranged, not chaotic, not collapsing, arranged. The hunter sat motionless, pressed against the cold wall, as the presence around him settled into a steady state. The flying head was no longer appearing in fragments, it was no longer assembling, it was simply present everywhere the stone allowed perception, in the cracks, in the air, in the pressure between surfaces, even in the silence itself. The eye he had first seen no longer stood out as a single point of horror. It had become part of a wider awareness. One that no longer focused like a predator but existed like an environment. A forest does not look at you, a storm does not watch you, and now neither did this. It simply included him. The hunter slowly lowered his head, his breathing steadied without him realizing it. Outside the crevice, somewhere far beyond the fractured stone and the sleeping forest, dawn began to approach again. Faint changes in light filtered through the cracks, softening the edges of darkness, but the flying head did not retreat. It did not leave with the night. It did not flee from morning because it had never been bound to either. The forest, the stone, the air between them, everything remained unchanged on the surface. Birds would eventually return, wind would move through branches again, life would continue its ordinary rhythm, and the place where the hunter sat would eventually be found empty. No clear signs, no final struggle, only fractured stone and silence. But the truth of what happened there would not remain in the village or in any single account. It would continue the way all things like this continue, quietly, unevenly, passed from one telling to another, always slightly different, always incomplete, but never fully gone. Because the flying head was never just something that appeared in the forest. It was something in the forest, something the forest could become when conditions allowed it, and that understanding would remain long after names were forgotten. The hunter closed his eyes one last time, not in surrender, but because there was nothing left in the structure around him that required resistance. And in the distance, beyond stone, beyond trees, beyond what could be separated into parts, the presence that had surrounded him finally settled into stillness, not gone, not asleep, just no longer needing to move, as if the forest had briefly remembered what it was capable of becoming and had chosen, for now, to remain quiet. Subscribe if you liked.